Welcome to the Inspired Mind podcast. It's your friendly friend, Ted Baird, along with Isidro Iturralde and William Behr. And I have a great sales colleague with us today, Mr. Ray Roberts. And he's going to be sharing some of his inspired wisdom that he's gained probably through a couple scars, but also through some great experience and some learnings in the sales world that have helped him become a very successful high performer. So Ray, welcome to the Inspired Mind podcast. Great to have you today. Our format really is simple. It's just a dialogue, just a conversation between some guys who are in the same line of work and in many respects are in the same line of life, understanding what it takes to be successful. So welcome, glad you're here.
Thanks, Ted. Appreciate you guys having me on.
Pleasure. Well, let's dive into our topic today. Our topic today is coffee. Just kidding. It's usually coffee. We usually try to start the day that way. But Ray, I think for us, we are finding ourselves in new space, obviously with COVID-19 and all that has kind of pushed into our reality. And like a lot of us, we're just trying to navigate the moment and maybe anticipate the new reality and what that's going to look like, which at this point, it's very, very up in the air for most of us. So, man, just love to hear maybe from, if you could just kick us off today, what are you learning right now in this wild, wacky moment of sales in the middle of a global pandemic?
That's a great question. And so the landscape has obviously changed in a lot of ways. I am fortunate enough that I work with the e-commerce sector. Primarily, my customers are in e-commerce. So with that, I've been extremely busy. A lot of folks that didn't see the value in e-com, they had a small shop, are seeing a huge influx of new customers coming in. So from that perspective on my professional network, it has been strenuous, a lot of late nights lately, and I'm sure it'll be another one tonight. The sales cycle has been shortened quite a bit. People seem very motivated to get things done, that's for sure.
Yeah. We noticed some of the same thing, where opportunities took a while to ramp up for various reasons. There's some urgency behind people's decision-making process, and they want a verified method and model that's going to work for their organization. Absolutely. And if we can demonstrate that, early, quickly in the conversation, it seems like there's some good traction around that.
Yeah, absolutely.
I would say, the one thing that I would add there is I think it's industry specific, right? It's what is it that you have to sell currently as to whether or not you're seeing an acceleration in your sales process, or, for a lot of the people that we work with, they've seen a deceleration in their sales process to the point that it's actually stopped. And the conversations that I seem to be having with a lot of those individuals is, the value that you used to lever is not the same value today. An example is, one of our clients, they do large facility management from a standpoint of everything from the janitorial services to the food services, right? So everything that happens in a building where somebody might go to work. Well, if nobody's going to work in that building, they've had a complete deceleration in their pipeline. Now that there's a little bit of opening, they've had to figure out and retool a little bit that the value that they're offering is not necessarily just the food, but also the cleanliness and the safety of the building. Right. And I think, that's important in this time as well, is that if you're a seller and you don't know how to change your message and understand how do I connect what it is that I have to offer to what people need right now, then you're not going to see the sort of acceleration.
Definitely going to be lost. It's a great point, William. Yeah. If you don't focus on from a building's perspective, the safety and security and the speed by which we can deliver these services, that's a great message to have out there versus look how big this building is. Look how many people we can put in it. They're thinking, oh my God, how many people?
All shoulder to shoulder.
Yeah. Everybody's just
you
in there.
You want to be there, right? Yeah.
You want to come on in. It's not safe or secure. Don't worry about it. We'll figure it out. Okay. Absolutely. Messaging is so important. That's actually one of my most popular videos on my YouTube channel is LinkedIn messaging.
LinkedIn messaging. That's good.
Well, that's how we got connected to you, right, Isidro? I mean, maybe you want to share a little bit about how we connected with Ray and had the pleasure of being able to invite him today, because it really started with you. I mean, two sellers connecting in social media about what you do so well.
Yeah, I think it's it's interesting times for sure. And one of the things that I found is that during these times, specifically some salespeople, they're going through ups and downs in their mindset and their mental aspect of selling. And some of it is fear, some doubt. Like if I used to be just an in-person seller that was selling out in the field all the time, meeting with my customers, and now I'm completely virtual, like, can I do this? I'm not built for this. I wasn't hired for this. I'm not an inside salesperson. There's a lot going on. With fear also comes the ability for people to prey on people with this, like, oh, I got the magic solution for you. If you're in sales, I got a special for you today. And so there was this funny post, and I'm constantly looking for what other sellers are talking about, what types of discussions are going on, what types of things they're doing. And where Ray and I got connected was this really funny post of like these people that are sales gurus and their posts and, their expertise and these magic pills to selling. And unfortunately, people fall prey to some of that stuff because they get desperate in a situation like this of just looking for a quick solution to shorten their sales cycle and be able to close deals starting tomorrow, right? And I saw Ray's post on there about this, about, there is no magic pill. There's no quick solution. It's just like anything else, right? You're trying to lose weight. You're trying to start an exercise plan. It's like, you're not going to find a tool that you can buy online that's going to get you a six-pack and beach ready by tomorrow. It's a process. And unfortunately, you got to take one step in front of the other, start, living healthy, eating healthy, and following whatever that regime is. And the same way, sales is the same way. And I found Ray's response to it thoughtful. And I thought it was very well thought through. And I really resonated with me. And that's when I connected with him and I said, hey, we'd love for you to come on the podcast and chat about it. And he said, I'd love to. So Ray, I'd love for you to unpack a little bit about what your message was about in that comment that you made, and so that we can chat about that.
Absolutely. So, and I have it here in front of me. It's almost become one of my mantras. It's funny to me how many people actually believe in the sales voodoo magic. Sell me this pin, or I can mirror you to make you buy from me because you'll accept me. I think all of this contributes to the theory that salespeople are untrustworthy. That there's trickery or these tactics, the sales tools and tactics. You always hear this. That you have to have those. And I feel the mechanics behind a good salesperson are much easier than this. You either have the skills to understand your buyer and understand how to deliver the information in a tangible way to that buyer and make an authentic connection to someone that can actually use your service. Then you're going to find yourself having more wins. Great salespeople don't stay in their comfort zone either. They're constantly learning and evolving and changing that process to meet the need and demand of today's market or today's buyer. But it all starts with and ends with trust. Like you said, there's no magic, there's no voodoo, there's no secret, there's no pill. There's processes that work. There are techniques in message delivery that work. There are research on the front half of this when you're cold calling. I don't just call people out of the blue. I know that this is a company that can probably use my service, and I'm trying to break through. And I don't call them gatekeepers either, because I also don't believe sales is stressful, believe it or not. I believe that if you follow these procedures, if you follow these proven techniques that we hear from all kinds of different sales leaders. Steve Anurito wrote a book, The Only Sales Guide You'll Ever Need. He talks about a lot of the same stuff. I think what I'm trying to do from my perspective on my YouTube channel, Coaching by Ray, is deliver this in a fresh, new way that brings in a little bit of my flair, which isn't always the most serious guy in the world. I like to be very relaxed in what I do. And I think that's, an engaging way that we can teach these techniques, the same techniques that have been taught for a long time. I'm actually not talking about anything new. I'm talking about stuff that's been around and that maybe we just need a little refresher on and dispel some of the sales voodoo that's out there.
It's interesting that you go there, Ray, because a couple things, so when I first read your post, the one piece that at first I was like, I'm not sure about that was, you either have it or you don't. And as somebody who trains salespeople, I think if you don't have it, you can learn it. but you're not going to find it through trickery. So that's where I was kind of like, I totally resonate with what you're saying. The one thing is, I think for sellers is becoming a really exceptional salesperson is something that you can learn how to be if you put in the time and the dedication. It's not something that's just going to happen. And you're right. You know, we go to work oftentimes, and we recently, Isidro and I, as a matter of fact, partnered up with a company that, you know, is at the top of their game in enterprise healthcare. And in having a conversation with the leaders, they were like, these are all tenured salespeople. These are all highly tenured salespeople. We don't need any 101 stuff. And we met with them, and I said, let me share with you what it is that I'm going to talk to you about and how. And it was kind of like you said, man, A to Z, these are the basics of sales. If you do these things in an authentic manner and you think about what it is that you're engaging in, it's, you know, I love the line from Remember the Titans, right? Where the coach is like, you know, it's like, you know, I do these things and you give it time and it works, right?
Yeah.
That's sales.
I run
you
these
do
plays
things,
and they work.
Yep, you do these things, you give it time, you let it go to work, and it works. And it's, you know, and when we met with all the tenured salespeople, they were like, man, that was such a great reminder to when I was new and really had to focus on the process of what I was doing before I got too smart and thought I could just shortcut it.
Absolutely. And I think the part that you either have or you don't have is the ability to get out of your comfort zone. I've worked with a lot of new reps, and even some that were not so new. I wouldn't call them tenured, but that they had a comfort area and they didn't venture outside that comfort area. And that's the part you either have the ability to come outside that shell or you don't. And some people can be taught and coaxed out. But I do find in a lot of ways that you're going to make it or break it in sales if you can step out of your comfort zone and can do the things that you don't want to do. And you'll find yourself on the other end feeling a lot more, revitalized for having done those things.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, you know, we call this thing the Inspired Mind podcast. And Isidro, you touched on this, and William, you did too. Ray, I'd like to sort of just get inside of your head a little bit, if we can. That might be scary for you. I don't know, for us to probe your brain a little bit, but you know, it's interesting when we do sales training, and especially right now where you have people, Isidro, as you said, that maybe have never done an inside sales type function before. They've always been face to face, and now they're forced to do, you know, a lot more work on the phone, or even, you know, in a forum like this where there's a video, you know, a two-dimensional figure that I've got to try to interact with and communicate authenticity to, and all of that. You know, there is this, everybody wants to skip the first piece. We've started talking a lot, Ray, in sales training about how important mindset is, and getting this thing right before we jump to the best technique or the golden bullet or whatever it is that people want. But if this thing doesn't work right, and we're not in a good mind space, we're tripping ourselves from the get-go. And I know, Isidro, this has been a big hot button for you. William, you and I have spoken about this a lot, you know, the importance of the mindset. Ray, talk a little bit about what's your dominant mindset when you walk into an opportunity to introduce yourself and your company to a new customer. How important is mindset for you?
It's so important. And I am almost the unassuming fool. I walk in and my first sort of message is, hey, I don't know if this is something you need, and you're the receptionist. I don't even know who I'm supposed to talk to, but here's what I'm here to talk about. Is that something that you guys do? Is this something that grips you, that you guys have going on in your organization? Who can I talk to about this? And I just do it with a giant smile on my face, and just the most warm and inviting person you'll ever meet. Because I feel like if I walk in thinking this is the gatekeeper, I don't like calling them that. Because yes, while they do hold the keys to the kingdom, they're not a block in my way. They're a person that I need to engage with just as much as I need to engage with the folks that eventually I'll be talking to on the closing process and the demoing and all the, you know, other things. It's just another part of my process of when I walk into an organization. There are no gatekeepers. There are no roadblocks other than physical and you know, solutions related roadblocks. Other than that, you're just connecting to people. And I think if you walk in there with a smile on your face and just an unassuming behavior about yourself of who you're here to talk to, but you know what you're talking about, that's going to invite that person to be like, okay, well, let me think about that. You're engaging them in a very different way than most everybody else. And I think that's the hardest part for me, is I have to look different than everybody else. And they're doing it in a very cookie cutter way. So it's easier right now, but that's definitely a very, very easy approach that I enjoy doing, because I have a lot of great conversations doing that.
Yeah.
Yeah, it sounds like
it's interesting that you talk about, I don't
value.
Oh,
go ahead, William.
Sorry, Ted. I was just
No, go right
saying
ahead.
it's,
My internet
I
was
think about that idea of yeah, I saw that. Ted has broken the internet in Oklahoma City today. It's just sort of, he's so busy. It's just hurting. There was two things that I always sort of leaned upon. One is, I'm a little bit older, so I used to watch the detective show Columbo, and he always just positioned himself as just really humble and unassuming, but he also kind of knew where he wanted to go. And, if I ask these questions, then, you're going to lead me to where it is that I want to go. And then I tell my team all the time, be curious like a child. If a child says, Daddy, why is the sky blue? And you go, well, this, but why? Well, okay, but why is that? And why is that? And why is that? And just continue to be curious, and ask the question that maybe, I think where a lot of sellers get in trouble is that a question pops into their head and they're too insecure to ask that question. They're worried, is somebody going to think that I don't sound smart?
Absolutely.
Or that I didn't do my research, or that I'm not, as intelligent as I should be? And it's like, no, that is the question your brain is telling you. Ask that now. That's the thing you need to ask right now. And when you do it, I think what's
100%.
amazing is a lot of times the person that you're asking that question of goes, man, that's a great question. I don't know. What do you think? And you're like, I don't know either, but I figure that's what we got to figure out. And then the other thing is, I don't look at them
Absolutely.
as gatekeepers as well, but I do look at them as probably the one person in the organization that has all of the information about who, what, where, when, and why, because everything filters through them.
Exactly.
I mean, they're one of your best resources to build a relationship with, to understand what's the temperature in the organization. How do these people feel? What's going on over there? What about, the guy that you sit outside of their office, or the gal that you sit outside of their office? What's important to them? So that relationship is huge. It's not a stepping stone.
100%.
It is the place that you should be building a relationship.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree with that more. And I love that mindset. I don't know what I don't know until I ask it, but absolutely 100% agree on you on that one.
Yeah,
I know we've talked about this.
The person
before,
that can
guys.
help. Sorry,
Go ahead.
Sorry, Ted. Go ahead, Ted.
Isidro. No. Go ahead.
I was just going to jump on
lag
that. It
going
seems like
on,
your
so
internet's delayed a
please.
little bit. Yeah. So on that topic, though, I think it's interesting as far as the word gatekeeper and that persona and what that mindset looks like of connecting with that person. Because what I found, and to the same point that you make, Ray, is leading with humility, with love, with enthusiasm, with positive energy, and just really, I have these so-called gatekeepers that look forward to connecting with me, or for when I reach out to them, Isidro, how are you doing? How are your kids doing? How's your family doing? Because I'm always like, hey, I hope you had a great Memorial Day weekend. How are you? How are you dealing with this coronavirus thing? It's like nobody asks them how they're doing, or about how their life is going, or how they're dealing with things. Everyone just wants to get past them. And so if you take the time to build that relationship and to invest in them and to connect with them, when you reach out to them, they'll be happy to connect you to whoever you want, or provide you information, or get you the information, or to figure out how to help you, because they look forward to connecting with you and to speaking with you. And I think that that's a huge thing is on that gatekeeper subject, is that, like you said, William, it is the person that has not only the ability to provide you all the information that you want, but you have access to everybody from that person. But you got to truly not see it like as a voodoo magic pill again. It's not like, well, if I just do these things with the gatekeeper. No, it's got to come from a place of authenticity and genuine interest. It's, you have to find a purpose of not how do I make money in sales, but how do I fall in love with the process of just being a good human being so I can help more people, and to not focus on you, focus on others. And how do you help them? And that involves every person in that process. And one of those people is the person that's called the gatekeeper, but really they're just a human being that's dying for interaction, for community, for somebody to just want to ask them how they're doing. And so I completely agree with you guys.
Absolutely. I'll tell you a funny story. So I called upon this business once. It was my first time in there, and the receptionist was talking to somebody about something. They said, "Gosh, I really could use some chocolate today," and I heard that, and so I did my thing, and they were, well, they're not here. We had a great conversation. Maybe next week, though. The person I needed was on vacation, so I was going to call on them again. Well, I went out to the local convenience store, bought a chocolate bar, brought it back, and here I heard you wanted some chocolate, and that just sent her through the roof with joy. Like, oh my God, I can't believe this guy brought me some chocolates, you know.
That's
Amazing.
that's voodoo
Real
trickery
connections.
though, Ray. That's
Those are
voodoo
just
trickery.
real connections.
Yeah,
You listen,
and-
you pay attention, and you
Yep.
engage. You have to be present
Absolutely.
and involved to build relationships. And I think when I talk about receptionists, you know, the reason why they're called that is because they're receptive. They're receiving information all the time.
Mhm.
Just like you had said, William, they're the ones that are basically the central hub of everything you need to know. And the more you connect with them and the more present and involved you are with their daily life or what they've got going on, the easier it's going to be for you and the more comfortable it's going to be for you to engage with all these different people in various ways.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, and again, you know, I'm joking about, oh, that's, you know, that's voodoo and that's trickery, but it's not. It's, you know, you heard that somebody had a need, which is what salespeople do.
Mhm.
We provide for the needs of our current, our future, our past customers. We provide for their needs. And some of that is that we listen to what the individuals within there are at that moment in need of. You just happened to hear that she was in need of some chocolate, or he was in need of some chocolate, and you provided that. That's being of service. It came from a good place, right? You know,
Absolutely.
it's like you didn't have to like go, you know, I'm going to go out to the convenience store, pick up a chocolate bar and come back with it. You didn't have to do that. You know, you did it from a place of, yeah, you know, I'm going to do this thing because I heard there was a need. And is there going to be potentially some reciprocal benefit for me? Yes. But it's not a given. It's not a guarantee.
Not a guarantee. That's right.
You know, it's just you did it and you move on and there you go.
Building relationships with chocolate
Yeah.
bars. I should just bring chocolate bars with me on every sales call.
Right? Chocolate and
Could
candy.
work.
Chocolate
It could
candy,
work.
just
Chocolate
hand it
candy.
out.
Just, I'm here to talk to such and such. Oh my gosh.
And I have Hershey's Kisses.
I have all the kisses.
If you're selling really big ticket items, I think you need to bring the Hershey's Treasures, you know,
Oh yes.
the with the almonds and the nougat
It's
in
got the
them.
gold wrap in
Yeah,
there.
yeah,
very,
yeah,
very
exactly.
bougie. Very bougie.
Yeah, yeah.
Ted,
We're
are
all
you coming
waiting.
back?
We're all waiting now for. Does Ted want to speak?
We don't
I
know.
don't know. I don't know. Well, it's hard to know whether or not. It's hard to know how far behind I am from you guys at this moment, but maybe I'm close enough to actually interject a point of conversation or question. But you know, I heard both of you, actually all three of you guys right now, just talk about the value of authenticity and building authentic relationships and genuinely caring about the person on the other side of that call or the person on the other side of that opportunity, and really developing that relationship from a place of us being who we genuinely are, and for us genuinely caring about what's most important to them or about their business. Ray, you mentioned this up front, you know, how important it is for us at times to get outside of our comfort zone and to push like the boundaries of known and familiar. And you know, for those in sales, it's almost a required skill set, you know. And I think, you know, one of my personal mantras is all growth lies outside of your comfort zone. So we have to regularly put ourselves in the habit of stepping outside of what's known, what's familiar, what's comfortable, to be able to embrace that opportunity sitting out there that is new. It may require a different approach. It may require a different level of thought to solve some of those problems. What do you do to regularly push yourself outside of your own comfort zone?
Trying new things, definitely. And I think after a while, you find yourself living in your uncomfortable zone, that everything kind of becomes a little comfortable. I would say earlier in my career, I started sales at about 8 years ago, 9 years ago, respectively, between that sort of BDR phase into actually selling. And in that time, of course, everything was uncomfortable. I had never called on people before. Cold calling was like, oh gosh, I don't like doing this. And I think a lot of the uncomfortableness in sales isn't really discomfort, it's distrust in yourself and your abilities. You're nervous to call because you don't know what's going to happen. You can't predict the outcome, or you're going to go for something on a sales call that you think, this could be thought provoking, but this could also backfire in my face and be just a really bad question. But it's the fear of the unknown that makes you uncomfortable. And when you can learn to master that, when you can learn to kind of sully with yourself and say, some of the things I'm going to do, I'm not going to be very comfortable with, but you have to have that curiosity, that curious mind to discover what's on the other side of this. And I think that's one of the trademarks that a lot of great salespeople have. They're not afraid to discover. They might be uncomfortable with how they need to discover things, but that need for discovery outweighs their ability to be scared of being uncomfortable. Discomfortable? Is that even a word?
No, it is today.
It is
Let's
now.
be discomfortable. Yeah. I think it's a great best practice, a great personal practice, right? Continually pushing ourselves outside of the comfort zone. And that's a really interesting concept too, Ray, to think about, as we grow and evolve as human beings, as sellers, as providers of services, whatever our domain is, our ability to continually push the boundary out because our body of knowledge increases, our body of experience increases, maybe our risk tolerance goes up, and so we've got to continually push ourselves out there. Isidro, what about you? I mean, what's some of the ways you push the boundaries of comfort for you?
Yeah, so I think it's very similar to Ray. And actually, the more I hear Ray talk, the more I'm impressed at how alike our paths are. I've been selling for about 8 years too, Ray. So that's crazy. And for the first couple of years, I just thought my charm and charisma was going to get me through. And then I realized that that's not going to work. And so for me, it's continuously investing in myself, whether it's attending a Tony Robbins event, and at the last one, you're at Business Mastery, and hey, guess what? You got to start a business with 5 strangers, and you got to be able to start making that business grow here, and you got to get out of your comfort zone in that. But in an interview recently with one of the top sellers at a huge enterprise that we all know, they asked him, what exactly is it that makes a seller good here? And he says, when things start to click. And I thought that was a very interesting topic. And to your level of what you were talking about, Ray, is, when things start to click is when you get to the place in your sales career, when you understand enough of what the pain points are associated to the solutions that you have, you understand your solutions inside and out, and you know how and where to navigate waters. What strings do I pull when I need something to happen here internally to get the leverage that I need? How do I ask the question, or how do I ask questions to lead my customer? But in order to get to a place when things start to click and you start to feel comfortable in sales, you have to really get comfortable with feeling uncomfortable, because you got to get to a place to where it becomes unconscious competence. But in order to do that, you have to fail a lot, like learning to ride a bike, right? You have to fall down a bunch of times riding a bike in order to get so good at riding a bike that you can take your hands off, or you can just be having a conversation with somebody like it's something you've been doing and you've been attached to that bike all your life. And so it's constantly finding ways to tweak things. And like Ray said, is experimenting a lot. But in order to experiment, you have to be able to keep track of what are the things that you're changing about your process all the time. It's the reason why New Year's resolutions don't work. It's because people are trying 50 different things and none of them work. But instead, Let me add one new thing, see how that works. Okay, that didn't work exactly this way. Let me keep everything else consistent and change this thing. Maybe, but if you're not keeping track of those things and you're changing everything all the time, you're never going to know what works. And so you're going to give up and you're going to feel frustrated. But to Ray's point, it's like, you got to fall in love with the process. And that's what E.T., the hip hop preacher, one of my favorite guys, is like, everyone wants to be a beast. Everyone wants to hunt. Everyone wants to be a lion, but no one wants to follow the process of what that hunt looks like to be able to capture your prey. Everyone just wants to be eating the prey. And so you have to fall in love with that process every single day and be meticulous about every part. Okay, in my research, this is what I do. And I was just talking to William about this the other day. I lost a sale and I got frustrated with myself. You know what? Because I got lazy in the front end of the process. I let somebody introduce me to somebody and I just like made an assumption and I jumped in to pitching that person. I was like, I'm an idiot. I knew right after that call, this is not going to go the way that neither one of us needed it to, because I got lazy and I didn't follow the process. I knew immediately in my gut. 2 weeks later, I found out that what my gut felt was the right thing.
Right. I think it's like, what was it? Ronnie Coleman said something similar. You know, everybody wants to look like a bodybuilder, but nobody wants to lift the heavy weight. You know, you have to put the time into the process. You have to, like you said as well, and I love the Isidro about mastering your product. You have to know what you're selling inside and out, because when you get into these situations and you're there at the company and they're asking you about these things, well, how does your company address this or this? These are my concerns. You have to be able to address those things. So I think at the point when you click is when you can relate the cold to the close. When you can see that this part of the cold process equals this part of the close process, everything in between there is an important step to take. And even if you feel it redundant, you take the step anyway. And what I found is that my customers say, thank you for reiterating that, or that's a great point, or there's something we didn't pull out of from a previous conversation that we're pulling these points out now. These are valuable things to us. When you follow that process, everything else falls into place. And like you said, you miss one step of it. And I've been there before and I've been gutted by it. Like, oh no, I didn't do the follow-up I should have done, or I meant to schedule this and I didn't, or I didn't have the key person in that I needed to bring in. You're just leaving the doors open for what we call competitors. I'm sure we've all got them to swoop in and do those things right and to nail those processes and obviously win the business, because they're putting up a much more well represented front than what you are.
I think we're a lot of new salespeople, working as a coach and having, brought sellers on. I think about my own sales career when I started selling what might be considered the first big ticket item that I sold. And it was really, in my opinion, an experience that I think if every seller ever went through, it's such a great learning opportunity. And that is car sales. I mean, it's such a pure
I did it as well.
Such a pure form of sales, right? And so when I started out, they taught me a process. I didn't know any better, so I followed the process, sold a whole bunch of cars, and then I was like, oh man, I'm so smart. I can just sidestep this and do this. And all of a sudden my sales went, and I was like, whoa. And they said, oh yeah, you got too smart. You're just too smart. You just got to do the things that you do. And what's interesting is when I speak to a lot of new sellers about the basics of sales, they're like, yeah, but I just keep doing the same thing over and over again. And I'm like, yeah, it's not new to you, but it's new to your customer. They haven't engaged in that process with you. And the thing about having that process is, while you need to be uncomfortable, having a process can at least put you comfortable in the process of what you're trying to do, so you can be open to the information that you're getting. And that information coming back to you might create a discomfort in, I hadn't thought about that. How do I answer it? But at least you're able to listen and know where you're going,
Absolutely.
And so it's, it might not be new to you to pick up the phone and introduce yourself every time. It wasn't new to me to go out and meet a new customer on the sales lot and introduce myself and take them through the 7 steps of the sales process and tell them, I'm going to give you 45 minutes of quality time without asking you to buy anything. But at the end of that 45 minutes, I'm going to sell you a car. Like, I knew this is what I'm going to do. And I created a safe space for them. told them what the process was, walked them through the process. They knew what to expect, right? And I just rinse and repeat, rinse and repeat, rinse and repeat, and it will work. It's like, I think sometimes we get stuck on, like Isidro said, well, that didn't work on this one call, so I'm going to do it completely differently on these next calls. Oh, that didn't work on this call, so I'm going to do it different. You never know what's working because you're never giving it enough time to work.
Exactly.
That's one of the most probably pointed out things that I see in new reps when we talk about these processes, and they'll come to me and say, Ray, that completely bombed on this last call. But how did it work for the other 30? It's remembering that the larger picture and getting people to see that bigger scale of just because it didn't work that one time. What about the other 50 times that it did work?
Yeah. Or great, it didn't work those 3 times. Go do it again.
Right. How did you deliver it? Right. Exactly.
Just go do it again. Yeah.
Guys, as we approach the top of the hour, let me just ask for you to think about this with me. All 3 of you represent coaches in your own right. Sometimes you're coaching people via video. Sometimes you're coaching a new seller in your organization. You may be coaching the sellers in your team. But let's just flip back. Let's do the time warp 8 years, Ray, for you and Isidro, when you were first starting out in sales. And if you were going to coach yourself 8 years ago when you're first starting out, and as a coach, you only had 60 seconds to give yourself one piece of knowledge or information that you knew was going to land in that brain and actually create a new habit of behavior, a new thought, process of thought, whatever it would be. What's the one thing you would say to yourself in 60 seconds in that 8-year-old or that 8 years ago version of yourself when you were just starting out?
For me, it would be follow the process, learn from your mistakes and your failures, and definitely, if I had this at the time, I would go to YouTube, and Coaching by Ray would be my go-to source for a lot. If you want to learn all those mistakes I made and how not to make them and what you should be maybe doing, that's a great resource for you. That's a great question, Ted. You really stuck us on that one.
No, that's awesome, right? I mean, there's some great nuggets of truth in there. Find a good resource. Find a coaching mechanism that allows you to continue to grow and challenge yourself and acquire new skills and new understandings. And Coaching by Ray is a great one. Thanks for sharing that out there with the world. Isidro, what about you? 60 seconds to coach your younger self.
Yeah, I would say the first thing is failure is a part of success. And so, you got to fail your way to success. And that's something that I've learned over the years. You think you got to hit a home run at bats, but, we think of a really great baseball player. 300 is a great batting average. That means they're hitting 300, 1/3 of the time they're hitting the ball. That's a great batting average, right? And so it's failing your way to success is one thing. And I think the other thing is, success as far as what the total revenue is a byproduct of the small things that you're doing. What you yield, you're reaping what you sow. So if you're not sowing today, you're not going to yield tomorrow what you think. And so it's important to invest today. Don't take a big win and then, oh, now I'm going to chill for the next 2 weeks because I just closed that big deal, right? And so it's like, you got to always be planting seeds, always got to be, reaping what you sow, right? And so I think that's the 2 things that I would tell myself.
Beautiful.
I love that.
Great words of wisdom. WB, what about you? What would you tell your younger self?
I'm going to try to add to what these gentlemen have already stated because they're dead on. And if I think about myself, the first thing that I would tell myself is, not only do you not know it all, you will never know it all. And be secure in your insecurity. That's one. And then the other things I've said on this call: be curious like a child. Be curious like a child. And then ask yourself 2 questions after every opportunity that you work. Why did that happen? And what would I do differently? Even if you win, why did it happen? And what would you do differently?
Nice.
That's fantastic.
Fantastic. Yeah, really, really good, solid, sound advice. Well, thanks for joining us today on the Inspired Mind podcast. Ray, thank you, especially for joining us as our guest.
Thanks for having me, guys. I really appreciate it. This has been a lot of fun.
Thanks, Ray.
Thanks for
and Ray, are you drinking coffee? Do you drink coffee?
I have. I'm actually a decaf coffee drinker.
Oh, dude. Well,
I don't do caffeine.
nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
No Red
It's
Bulls for me. No
well,
caffeine
listen.
addiction either. And I don't
Yeah,
drink and I
there you
don't
go.
smoke. I don't have vices. I need to find one.
You know,
You
listen,
definitely-
Samuel Clemens once said that every man, woman, and child must have at least one vice. Because when you get sick, you need something you can give up so that you can get well again, or else you just die. So you gotta video games.
I better
or
find it
something,
quick
Ray.
then.
You better find one.
That's right.
You're getting
No
older.
doubt.
I better get on that.
Awesome, guys. Well, thanks again for joining us on the Inspired Mind podcast. Thanks for your questions that come in and the comments and email to us. Anything you want to talk about or you want to hear us talk about, not that we're experts on it, but man, we do love to have great dialogue. And some of your questions and your ideas are part of what catalyzes those thoughts in our mind and inspires our own conversation around it. So until we connect again, have a great week ahead and inspire yourself or somebody around you. Thanks, guys. Well done.
Thank you.
Thanks, Ray.
Thank you, gentlemen.